the diplomatic hall aboard the space station, lovingly nicknamed the bureaucratic black hole by those with a penchant for fatalistic humor, hummed with the kind of tension you only find when a group of aliens are about to pretend they like each other. The delegates had gathered for a grand peace conference, the kind that usually ended with a lot of handshakes and back-patting, but this one had the added bonus of a rogue planet as a backdrop. Nothing like the threat of being hurled into the unknown to keep everyone on their best behavior. Captain Reginald Reggie Tuger was someone you might call a professional skeptic, if you're feeling nice. If not, you just call him a cynical bastard. Either way, he was the human representative sent to this diplomatic soiree. Reggie was busy trying to find the perfect balance between appearing interested in the proceedings and not giving a damn. "Do you ever get the feeling," he mused, swirling the suspiciously neon drink in his hand, "that these events are just for show? Like we're all here to pay lip service to peace while some jackass plots in the shadows?" His aide, a young woman with a penchant for sarcasm named Liz, nodded. "Yeah, but at least the snacks are good." The hall was a cacophony of colors, textures, and smells, each alien race bringing its own unique flair to the party. It was a veritable buffet for the senses, if your senses happened to enjoy being assaulted from all sides. Reggie glanced around, his eyes settling on a group of Ringaxians, towering, insect-like beings whose sense of style seemed to have been inspired by a particularly garish peacock. "I can't decide if their diplomacy skills are as loud as their clothing," he remarked, raising an eyebrow. "I heard their language sounds like a blender full of marbles," Liz replied, eyes scanning the crowd. Good luck to the translator. Amidst this diplomatic circus, a rumor had started to circulate, whispered in hushed tones that carried a hint of conspiracy and the promise of chaos. It was said that a plot was afoot, one aimed at erasing Earth's languages from existence. The idea was as absurd as it was terrifying, and Reggie couldn't help but wonder if he'd missed the memo on when life became a bad sci-fi novel. "What's the deal with this language erasure thing?" he asked Liz, trying to sound nonchalant. She shrugged, adjusting her earpiece. "Word is, some group thinks that by wiping out our languages, they can make us easier to control. If you ask me, it's just a bunch of xenophobic crap. As if we weren't already doing a fine job of screwing ourselves over," Reggie muttered, taking another swig of his drink. "Still, better keep an ear out. Never know when someone decides to get ambitious." Across the hall, the various alien delegates were engaged in what could generously be called conversation. There were the Dramillions, whose fondness for philosophical debates was only rivaled by their ability to bore you into a coma. And the Zeoth, who were rumored to be telepathic, though they seemed to spend most of their time giving others the silent treatment. A voice crackled over the station's PA system, announcing the start of the conference. Reggie sighed, adjusting his tie. "Time to pretend we give a damn." The opening address was delivered by a Gorlak, a species known for their booming voices and penchant for long-winded speeches. Reggie tuned out after the first paragraph, his attention wandering to the giant view screens displaying the swirling void of space outside. "Think they'll notice if I sneak out?" he whispered to Liz. "Not if you take the back exit," she replied, a smirk playing on her lips. As the speech droned on, Reggie's mind returned to the rumors. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than idle gossip. Perhaps it was the nature of the conference itself, a collection of beings who were otherwise more inclined to shoot at each other rather than talk. "You know," he said to Liz, "it's times like these I wonder if we're all just extras in some cosmic joke." "Pretty sure we are," she replied, watching a particularly irritable-looking delegate from the Sark Empire try to contain his frustration at being seated next to the overly friendly Vulpids. "Doesn't mean we can't have a little fun with it." The opening session finally ended, much to the relief of those in attendance. As the delegates dispersed for a break, Reggie noticed a knot of nervous-looking humans across the room, their eyes darting about as if expecting something to explode at any moment. "Those guys look like they're in on something," he noted, nodding in their direction. Liz followed his gaze. "Probably just paranoid. But it wouldn't hurt to find out what they're up to." Reggie agreed, and the two made their way over to the group, weaving through the crowd. As they approached, the humans fell silent, eyeing them with a mix of suspicion and relief. "Care to share what's got you all jumpy?" Reggie asked, trying to appear non-threatening, which wasn't easy given his knack for looking perpetually unimpressed. One of the men, a wiry fellow with a penchant for conspiratorial whispers, spoke up. "We heard about the language plot, figured it'd be best to keep an eye out for anything strange." "And by strange you mean?" Liz prompted. "You know, like sudden power outages, mysterious figures lurking in the shadows, aggressive pamphleteers," he replied, ticking off the possibilities on his fingers. Reggie chuckled. "Right. Because nothing says sinister plot like a rogue pamphlet." Another delegate, a woman with a sharp gaze and sharper tongue, cut in. "It's not a joke. We've intercepted some communications. Someone's definitely planning something." Reggie exchanged a look with Liz. "All right, we'll keep our eyes peeled." As they moved away from the group, Reggie couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. It wouldn't be the first time humans were underestimated, nor the first time someone figured they'd be better off without them. "Looks like we've got a mystery on our hands," Liz said, her voice light but her eyes serious. "A mystery wrapped in a riddle, encased in a really bad sitcom," Reggie replied, a wry smile tugging at his lips. The break ended, and the delegates returned to the hall, the air thick with an undercurrent of unease. Reggie and Liz took their seats, their eyes scanning the room for anything out of place. As the conference resumed, a new speaker took the podium. Reggie recognized him as Jorkoth, a well-known diplomat with a reputation for being as slippery as an eel in a vat of oil. If anyone were to orchestrate something underhanded, Jorkoth would be a prime suspect. "Let's see what our charming friend has to say," Reggie murmured, leaning back in his chair. Jorkoth's speech was as smooth as it was entirely devoid of actual substance, and Reggie found himself nodding along just to keep awake. It wasn't until the diplomat mentioned a new initiative to enhance galactic unity that Reggie perked up. "You catch that?" he whispered to Liz. "Yeah, sounded like code for we're screwing you over." Reggie considered their options. They could confront Jorkoth, but that would likely end in a lot of empty promises and no real answers. Instead, he decided to take a more subtle approach. "Let's see if we can find out more about this Unity project," he suggested. Liz nodded. "I'll pull up what I can on the station's network." The conference continued, the delegates oblivious to the undercurrents of tension swirling beneath the surface. As the final speaker took the stage, Reggie felt a strange mix of dread and anticipation. "Think they'll serve anything stronger than this neon sludge at the after-party?" he asked Liz, gesturing to the drink in his hand. "We can only hope," she replied, her fingers dancing across the console as she dug for information. As the session drew to a close, Reggie couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to go down. The language erasure plot was too outlandish to ignore, and the fact that they were seated on a massive space station orbiting a rogue planet only added to the sense of impending doom. "Looks like we're in for quite the ride," Liz commented, her eyes on her screen. Reggie sighed, standing up as the delegates began to file out. "Let's just hope we can keep our heads above water long enough to figure out what's really going on." They left the hall, the weight of the rumors and the specter of the rogue planet hanging over them like a particularly persistent specter. Whatever was coming, Reggie knew they had to be ready. Because if there was one thing he'd learned in his years of navigating the slippery world of intergalactic diplomacy, it was this: nothing ever ended the way you expected. And sometimes, that was the best you could hope for. Reggie Tuger had a knack for two things: dodging responsibility and sniffing out trouble. And right now, both seemed to be converging on him like a particularly vicious cosmic joke. The Peace Conference, a grandiose affair designed to stop various alien races from obliterating each other, was starting to feel like a powder keg with a broken fuse. He couldn't exactly put his finger on it, but something was off. And when something was off, it usually meant things were about to go spectacularly sideways. As the delegates shuffled back into the bureaucratic black hole, Reggie noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere. The kind of change you get when someone lets slip that the appetizers might be poisoned, but nobody's sure which ones. There was a tension in the air, subtle yet palpable, like a whispered insult at a family dinner. "Smells like someone set off a stink bomb," Liz muttered, slipping back into her seat beside him. "Yeah, and I bet it's not just the Rengaxians' fault this time," Reggie replied, his eyes scanning the room. "Keep your ears open." "Always do, Captain." The speakers droned on, their words bouncing off Reggie's ears like a bad echo in a cheap karaoke bar. He had more important things to think about, like the so-called language erasure plot that was apparently afoot. It was the kind of plot that would have been laughed out of a half-decent holo serial, but here they were, smack dab in the middle of it. Across the hall, Remy Trias, the human delegate with the kind of inquisitive nature that got cats killed, was making her way through the crowd, her expression a blend of determination and mild annoyance, like someone who's just realized they've been charged extra for guacamole. She locked eyes with Reggie, giving a slight nod that said, "We need to talk." "Looks like we're about to get some intel," Reggie whispered to Liz. "Or at least a damn good story." Remy sidled up to them, her voice low and urgent. "Reggie, we've got a problem." "Just one? That's a relief," Reggie quipped. "What have you got, Remy?" She leaned in, her voice barely louder than the hum of the overhead lights. "I intercepted some chatter. A faction among the delegates is planning to erase Earth's languages. They think it'll make us easier to control." "Sounds like a bedtime story for fascists," Liz remarked, rolling her eyes. Reggie frowned, the corners of his mouth tugging downward. "Any idea who's behind it?" Remy nodded, her eyes darting around the room. "It's coming from a coalition led by the Avarans. They're working with a few other species, all interested in seeing Earth get knocked down a peg." Reggie let out a low whistle. "Uniting the cosmos against us, huh? Guess that's one way to bring people together." Liz snorted. "Yeah, nothing like a common enemy for team building." Reggie rubbed his chin, his mind working through the possibilities. If this plot was real, and he had to assume it was, given that his life rarely turned out to be anything but a disaster, it could spell trouble bigger than a black hole after a buffet. "All right, Remy, good work. Keep digging. We need to know more," Reggie instructed. As Remy moved off, Reggie and Liz exchanged a look that said more than words ever could. This was bad, and when things were bad, they had a tendency to get worse. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Liz asked, her tone light but her expression serious. Reggie sighed. "Well, unless we fancy getting our brains washed and hung out to dry, we need to rally the other human delegates. We can't let this thing get traction." With a resigned nod, Liz pulled out her comms device, preparing to send out the call. "Great. More meetings. Better than getting our vocabularies reduced to grunts and gestures," Reggie replied, standing up. "Let's gather the troops." As they made their way through the throng of delegates, Reggie couldn't shake the feeling of being a bug under a magnifying glass on a sunny day. The whispers were growing louder, the sidelong glances more frequent. Paranoia was spreading faster than a credit card virus on a casino planet. They reached a quieter corner of the hall, a little alcove shielded from the prying eyes of curious aliens. Soon, a small group of human delegates congregated around them, their expressions a mix of worry and resolve. "All right, folks," Reggie began, scanning the faces around him. "We've got a bit of a situation. Seems there's a plan to erase our languages. Not exactly the peace-loving gesture we were hoping for." One of the delegates, a burly man with a penchant for overreacting, spoke up. "How do we stop it?" "First, we find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes," Reggie replied. "Then we expose it for the pile of space dung it is." A woman with sharp eyebrows and an even sharper wit chimed in. "And if that doesn't work," Reggie shrugged, "then we improvise. We've been doing that for centuries, no reason to stop now. The delegates murmured their agreement, a grim resolve settling over the group. They dispersed, each with a task to gather information and allies. As the crowd thinned, Reggie felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Remy again, her expression a cocktail of concern and intrigue. "Reggie, there's more," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found evidence of sabotage. Someone's tampered with the station's communication systems. If we're not careful, we could lose control over the narrative entirely." Reggie let out a long breath. Of course, because why stop at a conspiracy when you can add a side of sabotage? Liz crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "Someone's really rolling out the red carpet for chaos. Let's make sure they trip over it," Reggie replied. "Remy, can you pinpoint who might be responsible for the comms interference?" "I'm working on it," she said. "But the signal's bouncing around like a hyperactive squirrel in a zero-gravity maze." "All right, keep at it. Let us know if you find anything concrete," Reggie instructed, his mind spinning through the myriad ways this could blow up in their faces. As Remy left, Reggie and Liz exchanged another glance, the kind that said, "Well, this just got even more fun." "Looks like we're in for a real party," Liz commented dryly. "Just what I always wanted," Reggie replied, his voice thick with sarcasm. The peace conference continued, the delegates oblivious to the undercurrents of tension swirling beneath their feet. Reggie, however, was keenly aware of the ticking clock. Every minute they spent in the dark was a minute closer to losing everything they'd fought for. As the next batch of speakers took the stage, Reggie felt a tapping at the edges of his consciousness, a feeling that things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. And he was rarely wrong about these things, much to his dismay. "Think they'll notice if I take a nap during this riveting discussion?" he muttered to Liz. "Only if you start snoring," she replied, her fingers still dancing over her console. Reggie settled back into his seat, his mind a tumult of plans and contingencies. The aliens might think they could pull a fast one, but they were going to learn the hard way that humans didn't take kindly to being played. They had to find the saboteur, root out the conspiracy, and keep Earth's languages safe, all without tipping their hand too soon. Easy, right? Like threading a needle in a hurricane. As the speakers droned on, Reggie felt the weight of their task settle over him like a particularly insistent specter. They had a long road ahead, one fraught with danger and double crosses. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was making it through the impossible with a smirk and a middle finger extended. The session finally ended, the delegates filing out for another break. Reggie and Liz lingered behind, waiting for the room to clear. "Think we'll make it out of this one in one piece?" Liz asked, her tone light but her gaze serious. Reggie shrugged. "If not, at least we'll go out with a bang, and maybe some fireworks." As they left the hall, Reggie couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and possibly out of their depth. But that had never stopped them before, and it wasn't about to start now. They had a plot to unravel, a language to save, and maybe even a little fun along the way. Because if the universe insisted on throwing them into a cosmic joke, the least they could do was laugh along with it. And who knows? Maybe they'd even get the last laugh. Reggie figured the bureaucratic black hole was a fitting name for the conference hall. If the cosmic abyss could suck the life out of a room, it'd probably look just like this, diplomats droning on and on, oblivious to the brewing storm. He glanced around, noticing how even the air seemed to stagnate, like it was bored of the pompous speeches too. He nudged Liz. "Think they'll notice if I replace the water with vodka? At least that'd make this circus bearable." Liz chuckled, eyes never leaving her screen. "Only if you're planning on starting an intergalactic incident. Might liven things up, though." The backdrop of the rogue planet loomed large through the massive windows, an ominous reminder that disaster was always one misstep away. The alien delegates, wrapped in their power games, were too wrapped up in their own machinations to notice the subtle but growing tension. Or maybe they just didn't care. Reggie's comms buzzed. It was Remy, her voice crackling through with urgency. "Reggie, the aliens are making their move. They're starting the language erasure. Of course they are, Reggie muttered because the universe clearly had a twisted sense of timing. What are we looking at? Advanced tech we've never seen before. These guys aren't playing around, Remy replied, her words tinged with annoyance. I'm with Finn Calder, our resident tech wizard. We're trying to counteract it, but it's a mess, Finn. The guy who once blew up a coffee machine trying to make a cappuccino, Reggie asked, eyebrows raised. The very same, Remy sighed. But he's our best shot. Reggie exchanged a glance with Liz. Well, when your only option is the guy who can't tell a latte from a landmine, it's best to double down. Let us know what you need, Remy. Will do. And Reggie, be careful. This isn't just a tech battle, it's a political one, politics. My favorite, Reggie said, rolling his eyes. Just keep us posted. As the call ended, Reggie turned back to Liz. Looks like the fun's about to start. Just another day in paradise, Liz replied dryly. The station lights flickered, hinting at the chaos brewing in its veins. It was subtle, like a whisper of impending doom, but if you knew what to look for, and Reggie did, it was as blatant as a slap in the face. Time to rally the troops, Reggie said, pushing to his feet. We've got a sabotage to unravel and a conspiracy to crush. Liz followed suit, her expression a mirror of determination. Let's show these aliens why you don't mess with humans. The pair set off, moving through the throng like sharks through a school of oblivious fish. Their target, the little enclave where Remy and Finn were supposedly working their magic, or at least trying not to blow themselves up. They navigated the winding corridors, each turn revealing more signs of the station's growing instability. The lights dimmed, the air felt heavier, and the low hum of technology had taken on an ominous edge. Feels like the station's about to have a nervous breakdown, Liz commented, dodging a loose panel dangling from the ceiling. Yep. All we need now is a power outage to complete the ensemble, Reggie replied, sidestepping a puddle of something. He decided not to think too hard about what it might be. They finally reached the makeshift command center. It was a cramped room filled with screens, cables crisscrossing like a spider's web, and in the middle of it all, Remy and Finn, deep in the throes of frantic problem-solving. Reggie slapped a hand on Finn's shoulder, making him jump. How's it going, Maestro? Finn looked up, eyes wide and frazzled. We're knee-deep in alien tech I've only ever read about in sci-fi novels, Captain. It's like they rigged the station with a universal remote that's stuck on destroy. Great. So, business as usual, Reggie said, flashing a grin. What's our move? We're trying to create a countermeasure, Remy explained, gesturing to a jumbled array of equipment that looked more suited for a garage sale than a tech operation. If we can decipher the alien code, we might be able to reverse the effects. Might being the operative word, Finn added, his fingers dancing over a keyboard like a concert pianist on a bender. Just do what you can, Reggie said, and try not to blow us up in the process. Remy smirked. No promises. As they worked, Reggie felt an unsettling calm settle over him. It was the kind of calm that came before a storm, when you knew the worst was yet to come but couldn't do a damn thing about it. The station shuddered, a low groan reverberating through the walls. Reggie could have sworn he saw dust fall from the ceiling, like the place was already mourning its imminent demise. Sounds like they're stepping things up, Liz observed, her tone almost casual. Or the station's just throwing a tantrum. Hard to tell at this point, Reggie replied. Finn cursed under his breath, something about alien tech and improbable odds before turning to the others. I've got something. It's not pretty, but it might just work. Pretty was never our style anyway, Reggie said. What have you got? We can hack into their system, create a feedback loop. It'll be like shouting into a megaphone that's right next to their ear, Finn explained, eyes gleaming with a touch of madness. Sounds risky, Remy interjected. If it backfires, we're already elbow-deep in crap. Might as well go all in, Liz cut in. It's not like they're giving us any good options. Reggie nodded. Do it. We're not letting them win without a fight. Finn set to work, the room filled with the clatter of keys and the whirring of machinery. It was a symphony of chaos, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to go quietly into that good night. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the tension palpable, like a live wire stretched to its breaking point. Then with a final keystroke, Finn leaned back, a wild grin on his face. It's done. Now we wait. Reggie let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, and hoped they're not fans of lethal retaliation. As they watched the screens, the station seemed to hold its breath, the very air charged with anticipation. The lights flickered again, and for a brief, terrifying moment, everything went dark. When the lights returned, the tension snapped like a taut wire. The station shuddered again, but this time it felt different, like the foundations were resetting themselves, shaking off the alien influence like a dog shedding water. Did we just pull it off? Liz asked, her voice filled with disbelief and excitement. Looks like it, Remy confirmed, eyes scanning the readouts, but we're not out of the woods yet. We've bought ourselves some time, but they'll regroup. Reggie nodded, the weight of their situation still heavy on his shoulders. Then we keep pushing. We're not letting them erase us without a fight. Finn, still high on adrenaline, clapped Reggie on the back. See, told you I'd figure it out. Yeah, Reggie said with a grin. Just try not to blow us up next time, all right? As they regrouped, Reggie couldn't help but marvel at the resilience of the human spirit. Outnumbered and outgunned, they'd managed to throw a wrench into the aliens' plans with little more than ingenuity and a healthy dose of recklessness. But the battle was far from over. The aliens would regroup, adapt, and strike again. And when they did, Reggie would be ready. Because no matter how dark the universe got, humans had a knack for finding the humor in it all and fighting back with everything they had, even if it meant flipping the universe the bird along the way. As they headed back to the main hall, Reggie felt a renewed sense of purpose. They'd thrown the aliens a curveball, and now it was time to keep them on their toes. Think they'll come quietly? Liz asked, falling into step beside him. Reggie chuckled. Not a chance. But that's half the fun, and with that they plunged back into the fray, ready to face whatever the universe decided to throw their way. Because if there was one thing they'd learned, it was that grit, cunning, and a good sense of humor could get you through just about anything, even a cosmic conspiracy on a doomed space station. The bureaucratic black hole was living up to its name. Reggie Tuger stood in the middle of the diplomatic hall, surrounded by a cacophony of alien delegates and their petty power games. The rogue planet, visible through the massive windows, seemed to mock their attempts at peace with its silent promise of obliteration. Reggie felt a familiar itch of skepticism crawling up his spine. When was the last time a peace conference actually ended peacefully? Liz was beside him, still glued to her screen. You know, if this station collapses, I'll never find out what happens in the season finale of Galactic Housewives. Reggie smirked. Priorities, Liz. But hey, maybe we'll all get canceled before the series does. Their comms buzzed again, a discordant reminder of the chaos outside this room's posh interior. Remy's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. Reggie, we need backup. Finn's trying to negotiate with the Tecral, but things are getting ugly. Alien diplomacy. Like herding space cats, Reggie remarked, already moving through the crowd with Liz in tow. Liz, let's go save Finn from himself. Or the Tecral from Finn, Liz replied dryly. They pushed through the throng of delegates, each one more interested in their own agendas than the collective good. The air was thick with the stench of formaldehyde and desperation, a sickly cocktail that matched the grim realities they were facing. They reached the makeshift negotiation room, a smaller chamber off to the side, filled with a bizarre assortment of alien tech and holographic displays. Remy was there, her expression a blend of exasperation and determination. Finn was in mid-speech, gesturing wildly at a tall, blue-skinned Tecral with an impressive number of antennae twitching atop its head. Look, all we're saying is that maybe wiping out entire communication systems isn't the best icebreaker. The Tecral's response was a series of hisses and clicks that didn't sound particularly friendly. How's it going, Finn? Making friends? Reggie asked as he sidled up alongside Remy. About as well as you'd expect when you drop a human into an alien pissing contest, Finn replied without missing a beat. But I think they're warming up to me, or warming up their weapons, Remy muttered under her breath. Reggie turned his attention to the Tecral representative. Listen, we understand you're upset, who wouldn't be with this decor, but we need to work together if we're going to stop this language erasure nonsense. The Tecral regarded him with a look that could only be described as alien disdain. It spoke again, this time in broken English, humans always simplifying. That's us, Reggie said, flashing a grin he hoped was disarming. Simpletons extraordinaire, but we've got a knack for surviving. There was a tense pause, the kind that suggests someone's about to get vaporized. Fortunately, the Tecral seemed to waver, its antennae twitching less aggressively. We will consider, it said finally, its tone begrudging. But not promise. Promises in politics are like unicorns, nice to think about but not real, Liz quipped. The Tecral gave Liz a slow, contemplative nod before turning away, its decision evidently made. Reggie let out a breath. One down, a galaxy to go, he said. Don't get too comfortable, Remy warned. The Zilth delegation just locked down all trade negotiations. They're playing hardball. Of course they are, Reggie said. Why play fair when you can play the Zilth way? They regrouped in the main hall, the air tense with anticipation. The station systems were still on the fritz, lights flickering erratically as though caught in some cosmic disco. Reggie considered the implications of language erasure. Entire cultures wiped from existence, history turned into gibberish. Imagine a universe without sarcasm, Liz mused. Dark times indeed, Reggie shuddered. The horror, they needed allies and fast. Reggie scanned the crowd, searching for any sympathetic faces among the alien throngs. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack with the haystack actively trying to stab you. Remy, how's our charm offensive going? Reggie asked. Offensive is the right word, she replied. The Grelks are teetering, but they are skittish. They might bolt if things get hairy. And hairier they shall get, Reggie mused, watching as a group of delegates from the Clixon Empire entered the hall, their reptilian eyes scanning for any perceived weaknesses. Talking to them is like negotiating with a brick wall, Finn said. Except the wall occasionally tries to eat you, Reggie sighed. Okay, time to try another approach. Let's see if we can appeal to their sense of self-interest, or at least convince them that helping us is easier than not. The group moved toward the Grelks, a cluster of small, furry creatures with oversized eyes that seemed to absorb every detail. They were jittery, constantly shifting their weight from foot to foot, as if ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. Greetings, esteemed Grelks, Reggie began, channeling every ounce of diplomacy he could muster. We appreciate the delicate situation you're in, but we believe there's a mutual benefit to be had here. The lead Grelk, a particularly twitchy individual with tufts of fur standing on end like a bad hair day, peered at him suspiciously. Benefit. Human benefit different. Not necessarily, Reggie said, leaning in conspiratorially. What's good for us could be great for you. You help us stop this tech from erasing language and we help stabilize trade. Nobody wants to lose access to the latest in whatever it is you specialize in. Fluff, Liz added helpfully. Very versatile. The Grelk considered this, eyes darting between the humans. Trade important, fluff important. Exactly, Reggie nodded. And if we don't stop this erasure, all that fluff will just be fluff. The Grelk chittered amongst themselves, the sound a bizarre mix of squeaks and murmurs. After a moment, the lead Grelk nodded. Grelk's help. For fluff. Fluff for the win, Liz said, making a note on her tablet. Reggie was about to feel hopeful when Remy's comms crackled to life. Reggie, we've got a situation. Of course we do, Reggie muttered. What now? The Tecral just sent a signal. Looks like they've got backup on the way. Backup, as in we're about to get our butts kicked back up, Finn asked. More or less, Remy confirmed. And the Zilth seemed to be in on it. So much for diplomacy, Reggie said, scratching his head. All right, folks, looks like we've got to move fast. Finn, you think you can tap into their comms? Finn shrugged, already working his tech magic. If by tap you mean hack into their systems and hope I don't cause a meltdown, then sure. Good enough for me, Reggie said. We'll buy you some time. The room was a blur of movement as they sprang into action. Reggie used the commotion to slip past the clusters of delegates, his eyes fixed on the control station where he hoped Finn's hacking skills would pay off. Finn's fingers danced over the console, a frantic flurry of keystrokes that seemed equal parts genius and insanity. The alien tech resisted, its defenses formidable, but Finn had a stubborn streak a mile wide. Reggie kept one eye on the door, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The station groaned again, the rogue planet hanging outside like the universe's worst security guard, waiting to deliver its final ultimatum. Got it! Finn's triumphant shout broke through the tension. I've intercepted their comms. What's the bad news? Reggie asked, because in this line of work there's always bad news. They're planning on accelerating the language erasure, Finn said, his voice grim. They want to erase Earth's cultural heritage before we can mount a proper defense. Reggie felt a chill run down his spine. Then we need to move now. If we lose our history, we're just another footnote in theirs. Liz shot him a sidelong glance. Reggie Tooger, defender of fluff and sarcasm. Who would have thought? Stranger things have happened, Reggie replied, his grin more a baring of teeth. Let's finish this. With the Grelks now on their side and the Tekral's plans temporarily scuppered, they had a fighting chance. Still, the weight of what hung in the balance was a sobering reminder that this was no joke. They moved as one, a ragtag band of humans and aliens united by necessity, racing against a ticking clock of cosmic proportions. Reggie could almost hear the universe laughing at their audacity, but for once, he laughed right back. Let's show them what happens when you threaten a planet full of stubborn, sarcastic primates, he said, leading the charge through the chaos. The station's corridors were a maze of flickering lights and clashing cultures, but for once, Reggie felt like they were in control, or at least as much control as one could muster in a universe that seemed hell-bent on swallowing them whole. As they neared the heart of the station, where the alien tech pulsed with a malevolent energy, Reggie's resolve hardened. This was their chance to turn the tide, to push back against the encroaching darkness with every ounce of grit and gallows humor they had. Because, in the end, that's what humanity did best. Survive, adapt, and find the humor in the darkest of times, even if it meant flipping the universe the bird along the way. The space station shuddered again, a gentle reminder that being suspended in the void on a giant, creaking tin can was a terrible idea. And yet, here they were, trapped in the bureaucratic black hole, a fitting name if there ever was one. Reggie wondered, not for the first time, if his life wouldn't have been better spent selling insurance or maybe as a professional couch potato. Anything to avoid the diplomatic disaster currently unfolding. Any chance of a miracle, Reggie muttered, to no one in particular, his eyes scanning the chaos around them. If you count the station holding together for another 5 minutes as a miracle, then yes, Liz replied, barely looking up from her Galactic Housewife's screen. Otherwise, your guess is as good as mine. There was a cacophony of alien voices rising in panic. The conference hall, usually a dull theater of empty promises and faux smiles, was now a frenzy of flailing limbs and panic screeches. Delegates from all across the galaxy were losing their collective minds, each convinced the walls were closing in. Because, well, they were. Remy was desperately trying to coordinate with the few allies they had left. The Grelks, bless their furry little hearts, were hanging around, the promise of trade and fluff compelling enough to keep them from bolting. But the Zilth and Tekral were playing a different game, one rigged to end with humanity as the punchline. Reggie, Remy called, waving him over with an urgency that said we're screwed louder than any words could. Finn's managed to hack into the alien systems, but they're countering faster than he can keep up. Reggie sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Of course they are. Why can't aliens ever have crappy tech like us? Would it kill them to have a bug or two in their systems? Apparently, yes, Finn chimed in, not looking up from his frantic typing. Their tech is layered like an onion, Every time I peel one back, there's another stinking layer. Great, so we're fighting Shrek's family tree, Liz quipped, still managing to keep her attention split between the unfolding chaos and her screen. Reggie glanced at the rogue planet hanging ominously through the station's window. It was like the universe's biggest middle finger, waiting to crash whatever party they were trying to throw here. How long do we have before that thing causes an unscheduled appointment with Oblivion? Depends on how fast Finn can crack the system, Remy said, sounding less than optimistic. Finn frowned, his concentration breaking momentarily. Hey, don't look at me like I'm some kind of miracle worker. I'm good, but I'm not save the universe good. Well, get better, Reggie shot back, half joking, half praying. Always the motivating speaker, Finn muttered, fingers flying over the console. As they spoke, the station groaned again, a warning sound that sent another ripple of panic through the delegates. Reggie watched as the Teckrel and Zilth began to consolidate their positions, their backup steadily arriving and bolstering their ranks. Let's face it, we're outnumbered, Remy said, watching with a resigned expression. They've got the numbers and the tech, Reggie let out a dry laugh. Outnumbered, outgunned, stuck on a dying station. Sounds like a regular Thursday. Seems like we're stuck on repeat, Liz commented. The same old script, humanity getting shafted while the universe watches with popcorn. Hey, at least popcorn would be a nice change, Reggie said. I could really use a snack. Despite the levity, things were looking grim. The Teckrel's language erasure plan was accelerating, and without a miracle or a major screw-up on their part, Earth's cultural heritage would soon be as understandable as a toddler's scribbles. All right, Reggie said, trying to muster some form of leadership. Here's the plan. We need to stall them long enough for Finn to pull off a miracle. And if he doesn't, Remy asked, arching an eyebrow, her skepticism well-earned. Then I guess we get erased trying. But if I'm going to go down, it'll be on my own terms. I refuse to be just another glitch in their system, Liz sighed. Great. Our last stand in a galactic sitcom. Let's hope the ratings are good. Reggie turned back to the control panel, his mind racing. Finn, if you can't get control, can we at least jam them or something? Break their toys. Finn paused, considering. Not entirely, but I might be able to throw a wrench in their works. It'll buy us time, but it won't solve the problem. Time's all we need. Reggie nodded, trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. Remy, rally the Grelks, keep them on our side. We need all the help we can get. Remy flashed a sardonic salute. Allies for fluff. Not exactly the Galactic Alliance of Legends, but it'll do. Reggie turned to Liz. Keep an eye on the Teckrel and Zilth. If they make a move, I want to know before we're all space dust. Sure thing, Captain, Liz replied, finally pulling her gaze away from her screen. What's left of me is all yours. With everyone in place, Reggie took a deep breath and prepared for what felt like the final round of the universe's worst game show. The stakes had never been higher, and the odds never more stacked against them. But if there was one thing humanity was good at, it was making do with nothing and laughing in the face of impossible odds. As the minutes ticked by, Finn continued his desperate dance with the alien tech, sweat beading on his forehead. The Grelks, bless them, were doing their best to distract with their fluff, though the effectiveness was debatable. Meanwhile, the Teckrel and Zilth were gearing up for what looked like the final coup de grace. Reggie, Finn called out, his voice tinged with both relief and exhaustion. I've got something. It's not much, but I've managed to slow them down. We've got a window, but it's closing fast. Reggie felt something he hadn't dared to in a while, a glimmer of hope. Then let's make it count, he turned to Remy. Get a message to Earth. Let them know what's happening. They need to be ready for whatever comes next. Remy nodded, her expression fierce. On it. Let's hope they're listening. As the message was sent, Reggie felt a strange calm settle over him. They were outgunned and outmatched, sure, but they weren't out yet. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. With the Teckrel and Zilth still scrambling to respond to Finn's digital sabotage, the humans found themselves a momentary advantage. It wasn't much, but it was something, a chance to show the galaxy what humanity was really made of. All right, folks, Reggie said, rallying what little strength he had left. Let's show them why Earth doesn't go quietly. We might not have the tech or the numbers, but we've got something they don't. And what's that? Liz asked, though her tone suggested she already had an idea. Reggie grinned, a wry, defiant smile. Heart. And sarcasm. Lots and lots of sarcasm. In that final push, the humans and their allies gave it everything they had. The Grelks, small and unassuming, revealed a surprising tenacity, flurrying about with a determination that belied their size. Remy's comms buzzed with frantic chatter as she directed their ragtag forces, her focus unyielding. Even Finn, perpetually cynical and sarcastic, found a second wind, keeping the alien tech at bay with sheer stubbornness. It was a mess, chaos distilled into a singular, desperate fight for survival, and yet in the madness, Reggie saw what made humanity special. Amidst the flurry of activity, Reggie found himself standing by the windows once more, looking out at the rogue planet. It loomed ever closer, the representation of their impending doom, and yet with everything crumbling around him, he felt a profound sense of clarity. "Hey, Reggie," Liz said, sidling up next to him. "You ever think about what you'd do if none of this had happened? If everything was normal?" Reggie shrugged. "Probably complain about taxes or traffic. The usual gripes." "Yeah," Liz said, a small smile playing on her lips. "Guess we're all just a bunch of complainers at heart," he chuckled. "If we make it out of this, maybe we can start a new show. Galactic Complainers. Bet it'd be a hit." Liz laughed, a genuine sound that momentarily lifted the weight of their situation. "I'd watch that." And just like that, the moment was gone, swallowed by the urgency of their predicament. Reggie turned back to the fray, knowing that whatever happened next, they were in it together. Humanity might be battered and bruised, but it wasn't broken. Not yet. "All right, people," Reggie called, his voice cutting through the din. "Let's show them what Earth's really made of." In that grim, sprawling void, amidst the crumbling station and the encroaching darkness, humanity's defiance shone brighter than any star. They were flawed, sarcastic, irreverent, and they wouldn't have it any other way. The bureaucratic black hole felt like a ticking bomb, with every ticking second promising doom. Captain Reggie Tuger, a seasoned skeptic, leaned against the console, watching chaos unfold like a poorly scripted drama, and he'd seen a fair few episodes of those. The rogue planet loomed through the station's windows, a cosmic reminder that their meetings of minds might soon meet the business end of a celestial sledgehammer. "All right, folks, gather round. We're about to pull off the most reckless Hail Mary since the Great Space Punt of '42, Reggie announced, rallying the motley crew of human delegates. Liz, tearing her gaze away from her Galactic Housewives marathon, chimed in. "Let me guess. We're gonna use friendship and love to solve all our problems." Reggie smirked. "You mean the kind of solution that turns aliens into BFF? Yeah, right. We're more likely to win Galactic Idol. But no, we're using raw, unfiltered humanity and a bit of sabotage." Remy, her eyes darting between Finn and the chaos outside, tossed in her 2 credits. "So basically, we're winging it with a side of tech mayhem. Sounds like a plan." Finn, who looked like he'd been locked in a staring contest with a particularly stubborn computer screen, scowled. "I've managed to slow their systems, but it's like playing whack-a-mole with a sledgehammer blindfolded." "Accurate," Reggie nodded, clapping Finn on the shoulder. "But hey, if anyone can turn a sledgehammer into a scalpel, it's you." Finn snorted, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. "Yeah, well, let's hope I don't end up hammering us into oblivion." Remy shot a look over her shoulder. "The Tekral and Zilth are regrouping. They're not exactly happy about us jamming their signal." "Happy?" Reggie said. "I doubt that's even in their vocabulary, right next to reasonable and surrender." Liz added, "Or customer support. I tried calling once. Never again." They shared a grim chuckle, the kind you'd expect from a group standing on the precipice of annihilation. But it was something. A pulse of humanity in an otherwise mechanical, alien abyss. "Right, let's get to saving our species from becoming a footnote in the universe's history book," Reggie said, cracking his knuckles. Liz, keep an eye on those monitors. If the Tecral make a move, I want to know before they get a chance to air their grievances. Liz saluted with a twist of her hand. You got it, boss. I'll make sure we're not blindsided while I'm catching up on my soaps. Reggie turned to Remy. Coordinate with the Grelks. We need their fluff, not just for morale, but to keep these corridors from becoming corridors of chaos. Remy nodded, moving to her comms. Operation Fluff and Bluff is a go. And Finn, Reggie said, trying to inject some levity into the dire situation. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe throw in some magical incantations if you know any. Finn rolled his eyes, not breaking his concentration. Sure, let me just summon my inner techno-wizard. As the station groaned, Reggie took a moment to appreciate the absurdity. Here they were, standing on a floating disaster waiting to happen, trying to outwit an entire alien coalition with nothing but sarcasm and stubbornness. If that wasn't the human spirit encapsulated, he didn't know what was. The room buzzed with frantic energy as Remy scrambled to pull together their remaining allies. The Grelks, bless them, were more than willing to help, their fluff adding a surprising bit of comfort to an otherwise nerve-wracking endeavor. They're ready to roll, Remy announced, her voice steady despite everything. If the Tecral try anything, they'll find themselves knee-deep in Grelk. Good, Reggie said. A Grelk storm is exactly what we need. He turned back to Finn, who was still hunched over the console. Any progress on that miracle we ordered? Finn grimaced. If by progress you mean I've postponed our inevitable doom by about 5 minutes, then yeah. Progress? 5 minutes is an eternity in crisis management, Reggie replied. We need that time to come up with an even dumber plan. Glad to know we're sticking to our strengths, Finn said, a wry smile breaking through his concentration. Reggie watched as the alien delegates, Tecral and Zilth, moved like sharks in a feeding frenzy. They knew time was running out and desperate measures were bound to follow. But desperation was a double-edged sword, and Reggie intended to make sure it cut both ways. All right, Reggie said, addressing the room. Here's the deal. We need to make them squirm. Finn, if we can't stop their tech, can we at least give them a taste of their own medicine? Finn nodded slowly. I can send a few nasty surprises their way. Might not stop them, but it'll definitely piss them off. And a pissed-off alien is a distracted alien, Reggie said, which buys us more time. Time we can use to figure out how to keep our languages from turning into historical hieroglyphs, Remy added. Reggie looked around the room, saw the exhaustion mingled with determination. This was it. The moment where everything either came together or fell spectacularly apart. Okay, folks, he said, clapping his hands. Let's make them work for it. If they want to wipe us out, we're not going to make it easy. Let's give them a show. And with that, the room erupted into a flurry of activity. Commands were shouted, screens flickered with new data, and the very air buzzed with the collective effort of a species refusing to go quietly into that good night. Liz, eyes glued to her monitor, called out updates with the kind of dry wit that had become their shield against despair. Looks like the Tecral are sending in their best. Which, given their track record, is probably about as effective as bringing a spoon to a laser fight. Just what we need, Reggie quipped. A culinary lesson in the middle of a space battle. As the station shuddered under another wave of alien interference, Finn worked his magic, or at least, his tech-fueled equivalent of it. The screens blinked and buzzed, a symphony of chaos that somehow made sense only to him. All right, sending them a digital kick in the pants, Finn muttered. Let's see how they like a taste of human ingenuity. Reggie watched as the alien systems momentarily faltered, a flicker of confusion washing over the Tecral and Zilth forces. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give them a moment of advantage, a moment to regroup to fight back. The Grelks, fluffy and fierce, moved with surprising precision, creating barriers and diversions that kept the aliens off balance. Meanwhile, Remy kept the comms buzzing, coordinating their haphazard defense with the kind of tenacity that had become their hallmark. Looks like we've got their attention, Liz said, gesturing to the screens. They're scrambling like ants under a magnifying glass. Good, Reggie replied. Let them scuttle. The longer they are distracted, the better for us. Finn, still working at a frantic pace, managed a weary smile. We might just pull this off, you know, if only by sheer luck and an abundance of sarcasm. Reggie let out a dry laugh. The human condition in a nutshell: luck, sarcasm, and a healthy disregard for self-preservation. The Teckrel and Zilth, though formidable, were finding themselves thwarted at every turn. Their language erasure tech, once a looming threat, was now a cumbersome burden, struggling against the onslaught of human resistance. Remy, monitoring the situation, called out, "They're trying to recalibrate, but we've got them spinning. They didn't expect us to fight back like this." "No one ever does," Reggie said, a glint of defiance in his eyes. "That's the thing about humans. We're stubborn as hell." As the minutes ticked by, the tide slowly began to turn. What had once seemed an impossible battle was now a fight they might actually have a chance of winning. "Reggie," Finn said, his voice an odd mix of excitement and exhaustion. I think we've done it. We've bought ourselves enough time to come up with a permanent solution." Reggie felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation wash over him. Hope. "Then let's not waste it. Remy, start working on a broadcast to Earth. They need to know we're still in the fight." "Already on it," Remy replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. Liz, watching the alien forces scramble, gave a satisfied nod. "Looks like they are finally realizing we're not just a bunch of easy targets." "About time," Reggie said. "We've been underestimated for too long." With their tenuous advantage, the humans and their allies pressed on, emboldened by their unexpected success. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time they had a fighting chance. "All right, team," Reggie said, rallying his crew once more. "Let's keep up the pressure. We might just pull off the impossible." As the station hummed with renewed energy, Reggie felt a surge of pride in his team. They were battered, bruised, and backed against the wall, but they were far from beaten. "Here's to humanity," Reggie said, raising an imaginary glass. "To stubbornness, sarcasm, and the audacity to never quit." And with that, they dove back into the fray, ready to face whatever came next with grit, determination, and just a touch of gallows humor. The bureaucratic black hole wasn't just a name. It was a promise. A promise of endless tedium, paperwork thicker than a neutron star, and enough red tape to strangle an entire solar system. Yet here they were, on the brink of a diplomatic disaster with existential consequences, and Reggie Tuger was smack in the middle of it, along with his ragtag crew. "Remy," Reggie said, his voice a mix of desperation and the kind of dull annoyance you get after sitting through a marathon of Galactic Idol auditions. "We need to hit them where it hurts." "You up for a little backstage sabotage?" Remy flashed a grin that was all mischief and underlying chaos. "I was born ready, Captain. These aliens won't know what hit him." "That's the spirit," Reggie replied, clapping her on the back. "Just remember, this isn't a talent show. There are no judges to impress, just systems to dismantle." Finn, busy with his holographic console, looked up with an expression that said he'd seen one too many episodes of Galactic Housewives. "You know, Reggie, sometimes I wonder if our entire strategy is just to annoy them to death." Reggie shrugged. "If it works, it works. Besides, annoying people is a time-honored diplomatic strategy. Ask anyone who's ever been to a family reunion." The station shuddered again, a not-so-gentle reminder of the rogue planet looming in the cosmic window. It was like having a front-row seat to an impending apocalypse, just with less popcorn and more paperwork. "All right, folks," Reggie called out, addressing his motley crew. "Remy's heading to the alien control hub. We need to keep the Teckrel and Zilth busy." "Finn, how about a little digital fireworks show?" Finn smirked, fingers dancing over the controls. "Consider it done. They'll think they are in a rave gone horribly wrong." Liz, still glued to her monitor, chimed in. "Good thing they're not auditioning for Galactic Idol. They'd never make it past round one." Reggie chuckled. "Too true." "All right, let's give Remy the distraction she needs." As chaos unfurled like a cheap interstellar rug, Remy slipped away, her mission clear. The alien control hub was the heart of their operation, and if they could take it down, they might just have a shot at reversing the language erasure plot. The corridors were a blur as Remy sprinted, her mind a blend of excitement and tactical focus. She could hear the hum of alien machinery, the architecture as convoluted and overcomplicated as a bureaucrat's wet dream. "Here goes nothing," she muttered, slipping into the control hub with all the grace of a cat burglar who'd had one too many energy drinks. The room was a mix of alien tech and holographic interfaces, all pulsating with a sinister glow. "Okay, Earth languages is code," Remy whispered to herself, fingers flying over the controls. English, Mandarin, Spanish, Swahili, each one a piece of the puzzle, a way to outsmart the alien systems. Back in the conference hall, Reggie and the crew were holding the line, doing their best to keep the alien forces off balance. Finn's digital attack was a symphony of chaos, each note designed to confuse and frustrate. "Looks like they're having a meltdown," Liz reported, her voice tinged with satisfaction. "Kind of like watching Galactic housewives when they run out of wine." "Perfect," Reggie replied. "Let's keep them guessing." Meanwhile, Remy was in the zone, her mind a blur of languages and codes. The alien system was complex, but Earth had something it didn't: diversity. She played with the languages like a conductor with a symphony, each note a step closer to victory. As the alien tech wavered, she could feel the shift, the subtle change that meant they were gaining ground. It was like cracking a safe, each click a step closer to opening the vault. "Almost there," Remy muttered, her fingers a blur. "Just a little more." Back with Reggie and the crew, the situation was tense but manageable. The Teckrel and Zilth were reeling, their systems in disarray. It was the kind of chaos that fueled human ingenuity, the kind of challenge that brought out the best in them. "You know," Finn said, pausing for breath, "if we survive this, I'm taking a vacation, somewhere without aliens or language erasure threats." Reggie laughed, a sound that was more relief than humor. "I'll join you. Maybe we can start a resort, peaceful planet. No aliens allowed." "Sounds like a plan," Finn replied. "Now let's keep these guys off our backs." Remy's final moves were a flurry of precision and desperation, the kind of desperate gamble that felt like second nature in their line of work. The alien systems, for all their sophistication, finally began to buckle under the weight of human ingenuity. Come on," Remy urged, feeling the system give way. It was like watching a dam break, the rush of data a deluge that swept away the alien erasure protocols. The room pulsed with energy, the alien tech flickering and fading as Earth's languages reasserted themselves. It was a triumph, a victory snatched from the jaws of defeat by sheer tenacity and a refusal to give up. "We did it," Remy whispered, a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. "We actually did it." Back in the conference hall, the shift was palpable. The alien forces, once formidable, were now disoriented and scrambling. It was a moment of triumph, a vindication of everything they had fought for. "Looks like we pulled it off," Reggie said, a smile breaking through the tension. "All thanks to Remy's handiwork." "About time," Liz added, her tone dry. "Now maybe I can finish an episode of Galactic Housewives without worrying about alien invasions." Finn, weary but satisfied, nodded. "Let's make sure they don't come back for an encore." The alien delegates, finally realizing the tide had turned, began to retreat, their once threatening presence reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. It was a victory won with grit, determination, and the indomitable human spirit. Reggie looked around at his crew, at the chaos they had turned into order, and felt a surge of pride. They had done the impossible, and they had done it with style. "All right, team," he said, his voice carrying the weight of their collective relief. "We've shown them what we're made of. Let's wrap this up and head home." As the station hummed with the energy of their triumph, Reggie knew they had earned a place in history, a footnote perhaps, but one that carried the weight of their refusal to surrender. "Here's to us," he said, raising an imaginary glass once more. "To survival against the odds and to never, ever giving up." And with that, they set to work, ready to face whatever the universe threw at them next. They were battered, bruised, but victorious, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity and all the gallows humor that came with it. As the alien forces retreated and the station settled into an uneasy calm, Reggie couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had done it against all odds. "Captain," Remy's voice crackled through the comms. "We're all set here. The systems are secure and Earth's languages are safe." Reggie grinned, relief washing over him like a wave. "Great work, Remy. You're a hero." "Just doing my job," she replied, though the pride in her voice was unmistakable. Finn, still at his console, let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd binn holding. "Looks like they won't be erasing us anytime soon. Not if we have anything to say about it," Liz added, her humor a bright spot in the aftermath of chaos. Reggie turned to his crew, each of them a testament to human resilience. "We've been through hell and back, but we've come out stronger. Let's make sure this peace conference actually leads to peace and not just more paperwork." The crew shared a laugh, the kind that comes from shared hardship and a hard-earned victory. As they settled in for the long journey back, Reggie took a moment to reflect on everything they'd accomplished. They'd fought against the odds, against forces that wanted to erase their history, their culture, their very language, and they'd won. "Here's to humanity," Reggie said quietly, a smile playing on his lips. Stubbornness, sarcasm, and all. And with that, the crew of the bureaucratic black hole prepared to face the next chapter of their story, together, united, and ready for whatever the universe threw their way. The aftermath of the chaotic peace conference was a lot like waking up after a night of heavy drinking. The room was a mess, everyone was groggy, and there was a lingering feeling that something important had been broken. But in this case, it wasn't just the delegates' dignity on the line, it was the fate of intergalactic diplomacy. Reggie stood in the bureaucratic black hole, the not-so-affectionate nickname for the diplomatic hall, surveying the damage. The room bore scars of confusion and chaos, much like the diplomatic process itself. Chairs were overturned, holographic displays flickered uncertainly, and a few alien delegates were still trying to figure out which end was up. "Well, that went better than expected," Reggie mused, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "We managed to avert total disaster and only mildly annoyed everyone involved." "I'd call that a win." Liz, who had finally pried herself away from her screen, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, not bad for a day's work. I say we nominate ourselves for the Galactic Peace Prize, or at least get a gift card." Reggie chuckled, surveying the room. "We'll settle for a stiff drink and some alone time away from this circus." Remy rejoined the group, her face a blend of exhaustion and triumph. "I think I finally understand why we humans are so good at this peacekeeping thing." "Oh yeah?" Finn raised an eyebrow, looking up from his console where he was making a half-hearted attempt to look busy. Remy leaned against a nearby table, her expression thoughtful. "We've got a language for every situation. When your back's against the wall, it's amazing how many ways you can say screw you in different tongues." Reggie grinned. "And we use every last one of them. It's our secret weapon." As the delegates slowly gathered themselves, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They'd been outmaneuvered by a bunch of humans who, despite being technologically outclassed, had managed to pull off a diplomatic miracle. It was a bitter pill for some, especially the Teckrel and Zilth, who were still sulking in their corner. Reggie approached the podium, tapping the mic with the nonchalance of a stand-up comedian about to deliver the punchline of the century. "Ladies and gentlemen and esteemed, whatever you are," he began, looking pointedly at a tentacled delegate from Clagger Roman 9. "I think we can all agree that today was eventful." There was a murmur of agreement, though whether it was genuine or just exhaustion was anyone's guess. "Despite the rough start," Reggie continued, "I believe we've reached a point of mutual understanding, mostly that if we don't work together we're all screwed, and not in the fun way." A faint chuckle rippled through the crowd, the first hint of levity breaking through the tension. "Let's take this opportunity," Reggie went on, "to actually do what we came here for, to forge a new era of cooperation, to respect each other's cultures, languages, and yes, even our love of awful reality TV shows. The delegates seemed to perk up at this, the idea of a fresh start, a clean slate beginning to take root. It was a rare moment of optimism, and Reggie wasn't about to let it slip away. So, he concluded, let's sign that pact. Let's make sure this isn't just another footnote in the annals of diplomatic failures. Let's actually go home with something to show for it. The room was silent for a moment, as if collectively holding its breath. Then slowly, a ripple of applause began, spreading throughout the hall like a wave of reluctant acknowledgement. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. As the delegates returned to their seats, the atmosphere shifted. There was a sense of purpose, a renewed determination to make this peace conference actually lead to peace. It was a small victory, but in the grand scheme of things, it was monumental. Reggie returned to his crew, a satisfied grin on his face. Looks like we might have actually done some good here. Liz rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of pride in her expression. Don't get all sentimental on us, Captain. You'll ruin your reputation. Wouldn't dream of it, Reggie replied, his tone light but his words carrying the weight of hard-won experience. Remy watched as the delegates began drafting the new pact, her mind still buzzing from the thrill of it all. You know, she said, turning to Finn, maybe there's hope for us after all. Finn smirked, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of mock exasperation. Hope, in this universe, that's a bold claim, Remy, but hey, if anyone can make it happen, it's us. Reggie clapped his hands together, a sound that echoed through the hall and brought everyone's attention back to the present. All right, team. Let's wrap this up and get the hell out of here before someone else decides they want to erase us from existence. As the crew began to pack up their equipment, Reggie took a moment to reflect on everything they'd accomplished. They'd faced insurmountable odds and come out on top, proving once again that humanity's greatest strength was its resilience and its stubborn refusal to give up. Here's to us, Reggie said quietly, raising an imaginary glass to his crew. To survival, sarcasm, and stubbornness. And with that, they prepared to leave the bureaucratic black hole behind, ready to face whatever the universe threw their way next. They were a motley crew, but they were a team, and together they were unstoppable. As the final signatures were inked on the new pact, the delegates began to disperse, each species returning to their respective ships with a new sense of purpose. The station was finally stabilizing, the threat of the rogue planet fading into the background like a bad memory. Reggie watched them go, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. They'd done their part, and while it wasn't perfect, it was a damn sight better than what they'd started with. Think they'll keep their word? Liz asked, her tone laced with skepticism. Reggie shrugged. Probably not, but at least they'll think twice before trying to wipe us out. That's a win in my book, Finn added, packing up the last of his tools. And hey, if they do decide to break the treaty, we'll just annoy them into submission again. Remy laughed, the sound bright and infectious. We've certainly got enough practice at that. With a final glance around the now empty hall, Reggie led his crew out, the weight of responsibility lifted from their shoulders. They'd done the impossible, and they'd done it in style. As they boarded their ship, ready to leave the space station and its bureaucratic nightmares behind, Reggie couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They'd faced the unknown and come out victorious, proving once again that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Here's to us, he said once more, the words carrying a sense of finality as they set course for home. The engines roared to life, the ship shuddering slightly as it broke free from the station's orbit. It was a feeling of liberation, the start of a new chapter in their journey. And as they soared through the vast expanse of space, leaving behind the chaos and confusion of the peace conference, Reggie knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, and with a healthy dose of sarcasm and stubbornness. After all, in a universe where diplomacy was a joke and annihilation was just a bad day away, what else could you do but laugh and keep fighting? The stars stretched out before them, an endless sea of possibilities, and with a final glance back at the fading station, Reggie settled into his seat, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Here's to the next adventure," he muttered, a small smile on his lips as the ship shot forward, leaving the past behind and embracing the unknown with open arms. It was, after all, just another day in the life of Captain Reggie Tooger and his irreverent crew, a testament to the enduring power of human spirit and all the gritty, sarcastic humor that came with it.